Hi there and welcome to another one of my videos. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about this book, which is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Although it's not official, this book has kind of established itself as being a kind of toxic handbook for people to step over other people in order to get to the top in some kind of power game. Now, as most things that are a bit controversial, they also tend to be popular, and this book has also gotten pretty popular as well. Personally, I think that this book can be extremely educational, especially for naive people that think that they will never come across anyone manipulative or come across anyone that is playing this sort of power game. And on the other hand, of course, this book could also serve as a how-to guide in order to become a walking red flag or a megalomaniac, if that's what you want to. So this book, whatever you get from it, depends entirely on the reader. So today we're going to be talking about the 48 Laws of Power, and not just what in it, but why it might actually be useful, even if you're not trying to conquer something or if you're trying to gaslight any co-workers into submission. The author of this book, Robert Greene, has actually been called the modern-day Machiavelli, which is actually quite the compliment. I have read The Prince by Machiavelli, and I can 100% say that I completely see the resemblance, and I see why he has earned this nickname. And I think that the laws of power, so to say, are still going to be relevant today. I mean, throughout all of human history, we humans, we have been pretty devious. Like, entire countries have been shaped and formed, like their borders have been drawn according to certain individuals making power moves and using certain tactics. And what Robert Greene has done in this book is that he has taken all of these incredible power plays throughout our history and condensed them into these 48 laws of power to give a clear view of what are the rules and what ways people use to gain power and in order to reach the top. The book is also loaded with some really juicy historical examples such as Napoleon, Caesar, Catherine the Great, and these were all people that wielded incredible power. Some of them wielded it brilliantly and some of them lost all their power spectacularly. Personally, my favorite part of the book were these historical examples where people made power plays and they pulled off the most incredible tactics. And in a way, it is a lot more impressive than anything we might see in Netflix movies or in any series. The drama that has occurred throughout our history and the plays and the moves that some people made are truly incredible, and it makes the reading very pleasant of this book. The stories that are used by Robert Greene in order to explain these rules of power were incredible. Now the book is controversial because people see the laws and their titles and they immediately get scared, thinking that if they read this they are going to magically turn evil and won't be able to help themselves from manipulating and taking advantage of people. If this is the case, then I'm sorry to tell you, but the problem is not the book but you. And I think part of why people dislike it or that the book is controversial is because of the way the titles are written. They are kind of written like instructions, but this is, in my opinion, just a smart business move by the author to make the book more intriguing, make the book more edgy and maybe more controversial. And judging by the book's success, I think this was a very good business decision. The author could have conveyed the exact same knowledge and the exact same insights into the games of power if he wouldn't have written it this way, but he probably also would not even have sold half of as many copies. So I think it was a good option to go this route and to make the book a bit more controversial. And if you cannot read it without seeing past this, then it means you're not so steadfast in your own values, and you should probably evaluate yourself before you evaluate the book. Some of the rules of power, for example, they say crush your enemy totally, pose as a friend but work as a spy, never outshine the master, aka like don't outshine your boss. But what the author Greene is trying to tell you is not that the laws of power are in any way good or bad or ethical or unethical. He's just saying that this is how the power game has always been played. This is how it has shown itself throughout history, and this is how it works. And to pretend that it is not working like that will lead to ultimately your demise if you come across people that are playing this game, or if you find yourself in an environment where this is common. This raw honesty is, I think, also not just what makes the book so controversial, but more importantly, what also makes the book so hard to put down. Now, let's take a look at some laws that seem pretty diabolical on the surface, but are still surprisingly relevant in the real world, even if you're just trying to make it through your normal day. So, law number 1, never outshine the master. That already sounds a little bit shady, and it's almost like it's trying to tell you to dumb down a bit or play dumb so that your boss can feel smart. But honestly, in a way, this is also just emotional intelligence in action. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but people's ego is pretty easily bruised. Some people's ego is more easily bruised than others. Some people are more pathetic than others. And unfortunately, some of those people might end up being your boss. So it's not necessarily about dumbing yourself down, but it's about understanding how these fragile egos work and making sure that your own ego doesn't get you fired, at least until you can find a better boss to work for, or you can find a way to work around your boss in the hierarchy structure. Now on to law number 6, which is court attention at all costs. Now, this law absolutely reeks of influencers. We don't like it, but this law does have some applications, and I believe we see this almost every day, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, etc. We live in a world where visibility is rewarded, whether it's people trying to sell a product, whether it's podcasts, or whether it's trying to get your resume out. In a lot of ways, being invisible is worse than being controversial. Now, this obviously does not mean that you need to be posting idiotic hot takes 24/7, and it doesn't mean that you need to wear neon to your next work event. But know that there is a real place, or there is a real application of this law out in the real world, and whether we like it or not, we see it in action almost every day. Personally, I have to say I can't stand people that become a walking brand without a soul. I believe we have enough of those already. Now we're going to make a big jump to law number 33, which is discover each man's thumbscrew. Now this one, again, this law sounds like it was concocted by a Bond villain, but if we think about it and we look deeper, knowing what motivates people, like their fears, their desires, and even their insecurities, it can not just help you lead, but it can help you negotiate, and it can help you resolve conflicts more effectively. In a way, you could say that this is empathy's shadow twin. And it does not make you a bad person to know someone's insecurities or weakness. In fact, it's absolutely vital information if you're trying to be compassionate or even trying to help someone out. At the end of the day, no one can be helping out or no one can be extra considerate if they're not even aware of this stuff. So this law, if it is used with compassion, it can give you tremendous and powerful insights. But of course, if you're gonna use this law in a manipulative way, well then that's on you if you become a Bond villain, and it's not going to be the fault of the laws or the fault of the book, and it's just you that is gonna be a bad person, all on your own. Now some laws are like not at all rules to live by, but this also doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay attention to them. The world is full of people that are not so nice, and there's quite a lot of them that are more than happy to use some of these laws of power in order to gain power over you. In the end, there's absolutely no benefit to not be aware of these laws. You're not going to be a better person just because you're not aware of them. You're going to be a better person because you don't use them. And the more you know them, the less someone devious can use them against you. Firstly, let's look at law number 15, which is crush your enemy totally. Now, this law basically assumes that life is like a zero-sum game, and life might have been a zero-sum game if you were a Roman general or a politician in ancient Greece, but not really if you're just trying to get promoted without burning down the building. It's also like a terrible long-term strategy because the world is pretty small, and I always like to think that you're going to meet people again, and leaving scorched earth behind you will eventually mean that you run out of places to stand altogether. But now also let's be fair to this law of power. If you put yourself in the shoes of someone less ethical and that is desperately trying to cross someone, you can see how there is no real benefit of leaving the other person standing so that they can strike back. Once you cross someone, retaliation is going to be pretty probable, and so better to cross someone in a way that leaves them, how do you say, like incapacitated, so to say, so that they will not be able to hit you back. As you see, once again, this is an example of a law that is clearly a red flag, but that does also not change the fact that it is a true law, so to say, if we're talking about the game of power. Obviously, you don't have to crush your enemies totally, but you should understand what it looks like when someone is trying to do it to you. Law number 7, which is get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Now this law, if you can't already tell by yourself, this law is an absolute abomination if you ask me. This is a guaranteed way to lose the trust of everyone around you. And yes, delegation is smart when it comes to tasks. And yes, leaders tend to always lean on their team, the team that they have behind them. But taking credit for work that you didn't do is, at the end of the day, just kind of awful. And I think maybe even the original Machiavelli might have rolled his eyes after hearing this one. However, unfortunately, I think we've all seen people implementing this law or using this law to get some sort of super short-term benefit from it by taking the credit of others. Now, not everything in this book is completely villainy, and a few laws are kind of, if I dare to say, almost wholesome. Okay, wholesome is maybe not the right word, it might be a stretch, but they're at least good life advice. So for example, number 9, which says that we should win through your actions, never through argument. And this one I completely agree with. You should do the thing. You should show the results. Proving your point through action is not only more effective, it's also quieter, cleaner, and it's more hard to refute later by someone else. Next up, we have law number 29, which is plan all the way to the end. And this law, I think, is also pretty obvious why it's a good life advice. There is absolutely zero benefit of only planning part of the way, and there's only more benefit from planning further ahead. I think this law could also remind you to not get too high off of short-term wins. Always look ahead, anticipate, especially anticipate consequences, and make decisions with the end game in mind, because sooner than later you're gonna end up later. And I think that this law is also just part of general adulting. Then we have law number 34, which is be royal in your own fashion, act like a king, and be treated like one. Now, for me personally, maybe this law sounds a little bit too self-aggrandizing, but at its core, this is just about confidence. If you present yourself as if you matter, people are more likely to believe that you do. And not because of arrogance, but because self-respect can be contagious to the people around you. I think just don't take this law too literally, maybe. At the end of the day, the 48 Laws of Power is not a book that you read for moral clarity. Like not at all. It's a book you read for something more like survival literacy. You don't have to agree with it, or certainly you probably shouldn't, but pretending that power doesn't exist or that there's no one that uses power unethically is just being stupid on purpose. And you can borrow the wisdom of one of these laws without also adopting its attitudes. Knowing how power works protects you even if you don't necessarily want to play the game. So I think you should definitely consider reading the book. And if you honestly couldn't care less about power or the useful information about power, I think you can still read the book and enjoy it quite a bit just because of the amazing stories that Robert Greene tells about the different moves of power that have occurred in our history. And remember, you can be power aware without being power hungry. You can be strategic without being shady, and you can understand the laws of power without necessarily using them. You can read the book without becoming toxicity incorporated, unless of course that's what you want to do, and in this case this book is also going to be perfect for you and you can use it as your own personal handbook. All I can say is best of luck with that, because I think as a general rule, unless executed pretty brilliantly, it's going to be a pretty short-lived benefit. And yeah, that was all for me today. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you for giving me some of your time. If you want, you could always like and subscribe. You could also not do that. You're free to do as you like, and hopefully I'll see you in one of my next videos. Bye.